Bitcoin is up this month, and it's knocking at the door of new all-time highs yet again. So why is MicroStrategy down 11% for the month right now? Is the correlation with Bitcoin breaking, as many panicked tweets have been stating, or is there something bigger at play? They did just smash their quarterly earnings, posting billions in unrealized gains from their Bitcoin stack, yet the stock's been sliding a little bit. So does this call into question the whole idea of public companies doubling as Bitcoin treasuries? Is the market starting to lose interest or see cracks in the strategy? Or are we just zoomed in on too short of a time period and short-term noise? Now, apart from this, we also have some breaking news in and around Google making a potentially horrifying move when it comes to Bitcoin self-custody, requiring Bitcoin wallets in the Play Store for licensing and registration with financial institutions or with regulatory agencies. Is this the end of non-KYC wallets and personal privacy as we know it? Today, to enlighten us on this and many more things, we have Jeff Walton, VP of Bitcoin Strategy at Strive Funds, founder of the True North podcast, and co-host on Hurdle Rate podcast. He'll be joined by Dr. Ahmad Ammous, whose brother literally wrote the book on Bitcoin. He's an orange-pilled medical doctor with a bone to pick when it comes to modern fiat medicine. And to bring some spice and a devil's advocate position, potentially, to my take on the Google topic, we've got Joey from the Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. Stay tuned. You're not going to want to miss this one. I am Ben with the Btcsessions, and this is your bullish session. All right, I want to welcome to the stage Jeff Walton. We've got Dr. Ahmad Ammous and, of course, buddy Joey from over at Canadian Bitcoiners. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you guys coming to get bullish with me on a Wednesday evening. And I started with the strategy topic because I've seen a couple of tweets, as always, when the prices seem to diverge. There's all this speculation. Is it over? Are we done? Is the whole strategy playbook played out? Jeff, you look unconcerned, but I did want to just quickly kind of tee you up. And I think it segues nicely into your reason for being bullish today. So just really quick, I'm just going to pull up the strategy page here and I'll put us off to the side so we can be pretty together. But yeah, so I mean, we're looking at, MicroStrategy's at 389, almost 390. It's the MNAV is continuing to go down a little bit. So it's down about 3%. And there's all these people that are, oftentimes Bitcoin's at all-time high and MSTR is trading under 400. Is the strategy flywheel broken, or is the most hated rally of all time coming? And then we have here MSTR halting the equity ATM was a mistake, while only peanuts are coming in from other prefs. BTC yield is on pause, weakening the justification for an MNAV premium. So I'm going to stop chatting about something I'm not super qualified to talk about, and I'm going to defer to Jeff here. And Jeff, I want your take on this, and I'm going to give you free reign to segue into your topic on being bullish from there.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. Glad to be back. I love this show. And, it's a good question. And a lot of people are concerned about this topic right now. They're looking at Bitcoin trading near all-time highs, and they're seeing MSTR is struggle on a relative performance basis, which I think is a fair question if you haven't been following this space for a really long time. I think that the simplest and easiest answer is that these are two fundamentally different things. Bitcoin is a commodity, and MSTR strategy is an equity. And the reason I'm not concerned at all is because if you just zoom out and you just take a look at the balance sheet strength and you look at strategy in general, they've got $77 billion of capital. And that number, as Bitcoin is hitting all-time highs, that number is getting larger and larger and larger. And the relative leverage that they have on the balance sheet is getting smaller, smaller, and smaller. So that is providing capacity to grow their leverage sustainably and safely into the future. Now, one of the biggest unlocks here that a large portion of the market doesn't understand, doesn't get, they're not behind the curtain, is the monumental size and scale of these new preferred equity instruments that have been released in the last 6 months. So they've issued 4 new equity instruments, which are effectively debt-like instruments that operate as equity. They do not have a debt maturity, so they are significantly better than the convertible debt that they've issued in the past. One of the biggest unlocks here in this entire thing is that they have shelf ATM registrations on each one of these new perpetual preferred equities. So that means they can raise debt capital at the click of a button and probably a phone call to their bankers, which is huge, right? And a lot of people don't recognize this. When they wanted to go raise convertible debt in the past, they would have to go out to the market, and they'd have to go out to the market and put a presentation together. Here's this presentation. Here's how much capital we got to raise. And then they need to go negotiate terms. The market would come back with the terms that they wanted. MSTR would try to negotiate those. There would be negotiations on the interest rates. The whole thing had to get negotiated. And it was a big, long process. And it got faster and faster as they got more efficient operating that capital market. But now that whole equation has fundamentally changed. And now they can, whenever they want to raise debt capital, they can issue debt capital. And that is an enormous unlock here. Additionally, that debt capital doesn't have a maturity, whereas historically, the convertible debts that they raised on the balance sheet had a maturity. There was a point in time where they did either have to refinance, pay the capital back, or convert it into equity. And now these new instruments, there is no debt maturity, and only one of the instruments is convertible into equity. So it's a much more efficient form of leverage to take on their balance sheet. And they have the ability to leverage their balance sheet a little bit higher than they would historically because the characteristics of the debt are different. So like for me, when I'm looking at the stock performance, I'm not concerned about this whatsoever for multiple reasons. One, because I believe in Bitcoin and I've got Bitcoin as a core holding. 2, because I see MSTR as an equity subject to different market factors at different points in time. For example, we are at August 13th. August is historically the lowest volume month for equities across all indices and all like NASDAQ and NYSE and all of those things. So all of the money managers are out at the lake. They're riding their boats. They're out at the Hamptons. And there's just not a lot of attention on equity markets. So August historically can get a little distorted and weird. So I'm bullish because they're sitting on so much money. People can't conceptualize, like they have $66 billion of net capital on their balance sheet. That is incredibly strong. And that number is going higher and higher as Bitcoin gets higher. So that improves the credit quality of the debt that they're issuing into the market. And the proof of concept here is you've got other companies that are coming in that are copying and emulating what Strategy is doing. And that will help with the future credit ratings of these instruments and the market to start conceptualizing this transformation of risk into the digital realm beyond what they're used to in the physical realm.
Now, I've got a question for you, and I actually asked this of Saylor recently. He came on, and you know, I was asking in around, and forgive my ignorance around this, but I figured it'd be a good chance for on this show.
No dumb questions. No dumb questions.
Yeah, and so the question that a lot of people often have is, you know, what prevents this from being like an over-levered play? And he was saying that, you know, people will use the example, oh, well, what if a company is not making any money, they go out and they get a bunch of debt and then they finance it to buy Bitcoin, and then Bitcoin goes the wrong direction on them, and then they have to sell at a bad time. And his, you know, when he was talking about it, well, you can't get the kind of leverage, you know, you know, I think yeah. So why is that? Can you explain a little bit about why that's just not available? Why it's, in your opinion, it might be unlikely to see something like that? Or is that just something we're not seeing right now?
Yeah, well, the market dictates this, right? So if they were in a position where, let's just say the debt was even with the amount of equity that they had on the balance sheet. So let's just say they had $70 billion of debt. The market would be much less willing to give them terms on any future transaction. The preferred equity instruments would start trading and reflecting the increased risk associated with it as well. And they would have to start making the decision, do I want to raise debt capital at a 20% interest rate or a 30% interest rate? And that's what the equation would come to. And when you look at this balance sheet right now, they've got $77 billion of capital. The price of Bitcoin would have fallen in half. Let's just say go back down to 60,000. A lot of us would be cheering, would be like, great, I could, get more Bitcoin. And then if you look at the strategy balance sheet, you'd have $35 billion of capital relative to $14 billion of debt. If you're a risk underwriter, you'd take that trade all day, every day. Like that's still a great trade that you could probably get really good rates, or strategy wouldn't get good rates. But if you were a capital deployer and you were looking at offering somebody capital, you'd probably get a great deal at that point in time, as long as you felt comfortable with Bitcoin. And I try to rationalize this in the perspective of a normal human being the other day. Let's just say you've got just a person, okay, that wants to buy a house and they need to get a loan. Let's just say they've got $7.7 million of assets and they needed to go get a $60,000 loan. Would you underwrite that loan? Like that, and that's right now, that $60,000 loan is equivalent to their dividend liability annually that MSTR has. The answer is yes, you underwrite that loan. It's a great risk. Okay, yeah. Let's just say the assets fall in half to $3.5 million and somebody needs a $60,000 loan. Would you underwrite that risk? The answer is absolutely. I would underwrite that risk. And that's what happens in the capital markets to just a larger degree. The scale is just significantly larger. So that's a good way to kind of wrap your head around it a little bit.
All right. I want to open it up to both Joey and Ahmad as well to either comment or ask questions of you, since we've got you in the room. So either of you, do you have thoughts here, questions in and around this?
Yeah, Jeff, I don't know anything about what you just talked about for like 10 minutes there, but I don't know if you saw Cam Little hit a 70-yard field goal. Do you think you could kick a 70-yard field goal?
Absolutely not, but I have a 74-yard punt, and there was a big 80-yarder last week too. So
nice. Okay, good to know. Okay, on the subject of MSTR, since I'm getting a devil's advocate tag tonight, you mentioned that money managers often are away from their desk at the beach or doing something more fun than reviewing their equity positions every day at 6 a.m. The sort of counter to that would be, it's not MSTR going down and everything else kind of stagnating. It's actually S&P at all-time highs and everything else being bought except MSTR. What would you say to that point?
Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, the stocks are at all-time highs. There is energy coming into the market. There's a lot of that's a good point. That's a really good point.
Do you want to go back to talking about the kick? Sorry.
No. I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. And it's there's a lot of speculation in the market, and nothing's really changed, right? Interest rates haven't changed. Everybody's kind of frozen. So like the last 3 or 4 months, there's nothing really changed. So I'm not concerned about that, and I don't think that's like as big of a factor. Like everything's pushing forward, and I think there are still people on the sidelines waiting to understand like what's going to happen in the market. So honestly, I do think the second half of 2025 is going to be a bit more volatile everywhere. And S&P is at all-time highs, but it's probably going to pop significantly higher as there's a little bit more certainty on what the market looks like, what the market structure looks like in the future. Because everybody's paused right now on like interest rates, what's going on with tariffs. And then eventually we get into 26, we're going to start seeing conversations about midterm elections and things like that. There's going to be a lot of rumbling there. So I personally, stocks are at all-time, S&P's at all-time highs, but it's not, drastically different from like a month ago.
Where do you come down on something like the S&P inclusion? I don't know what the behavior of equities typically looks like when there's a market expectation that the S&P inclusion is coming soon. I actually don't know that there's a TradFi market expectation that that's coming soon. I think in Bitcoin, we think it should happen, but I'd be curious your thoughts on that too. That seems to be the other lever that's kind of in play.
Yeah, I've been researching this for like 24 months now. So I've been following Strategy's potential inclusion into the S&P 500 for 365 trading days in a row as of today. So this is something that I've been very interested in. And historically, if you go look at any analysis of when companies get included in the S&P 500, typically when the companies do get included, the stock goes the other way. The stock goes down. But it's really good to look at the analysis beforehand, like what's happening before inclusion, because the market knows all data at all times. So the question becomes, is it getting front run? How is it getting front run? Who's front running it? And what's the incentive of holding the equity into the future? So if you look at companies like Lululemon was added to the S&P 500 just recently, and it was front run. You go look at the stock beforehand, and then it was announced that they're added to the S&P 500. I think there was like a little bit of pop, and then the stock declined. In my opinion, what happened was the people that were holding Lululemon were holding it, anticipating this, and then sold, knowing that it was going to happen, and rotated to other opportunity cost of capital. Now, because why would you hold Lululemon? Like Lululemon's not going to the top of the publicly traded leaderboard. Now, there are situations where you look at other companies that are incredibly strong going into the S&P 500, and the mechanics of what's happened in the past is a little bit different. So if you look back at Tesla, and when Tesla was added to the S&P 500, they were added at a huge market cap, very similar to what Strategy is looking at potentially here, about a $300 billion market cap. Now, if you go back and look at their historical earnings leading up to it, you can kind of see that there was a trend in time where it started to look like Tesla was going to hit the final requirement to be included in the S&P 500, and the stock started to get front run. So it went from $100 billion to $300 or $400 billion before it was announced that it was going to be included in the S&P 500. Then it went from $400 or $500 billion up to $1 trillion in a very short time horizon. And what's happening there, in my opinion, is that it didn't matter about S&P inclusion. People wanted to hold it forever. They're like, Tesla's got an opportunity to be, one of the top 7 publicly traded companies probably for a very long time. There is no incentive to sell your stock to the passive inflows that are coming in the door. And I think that's something very similar to what's happening here with Strategy, because their balance sheet is designed and powered by Bitcoin. As the price of Bitcoin rises, they get a higher and larger participation in the market cap weighted index funds perpetually. Mm-hmm. And so there is less incentive to offload your stock into passive index flows into the future. Now, will they get included? That's a great question. I've been talking about this for a very long time. This is the most controversial topic of the year. And I think that the committee that has to deal with this is going to have a hard time excluding them. With the exception of like volatility. But if you think about the incentives are also aligned, mm-hmm. because like, who wants Strategy included in the S&P 500? Maybe BlackRock, right? Because if the S&P 500 includes MSTR and MSTR continues to perform well, BlackRock and all the companies that offer those S&P 500 index ETFs are going to generate fees off of those. Mm-hmm. And if that index starts to underperform other indices, people move capital. And we've already seen that happen. People are moving from the S&P 500, and a lot of capital is flowing to the NASDAQ 100 because it's a little bit more systematic and less committee based. And that landscape is evolving.
Okay, one more question, then I'll pass to the doctor. I agree with you that there's going to be rotation of capital. And I think just a general shift in thinking from traditional financial people and market participants from, I don't understand Bitcoin, I can't invest in it, to I'm underperforming Bitcoin, I have to invest in it. And MSTR is the vehicle for that. I think there's real truth there. I'm glad you sort of kind of touched on it a little bit. On the earnings per share thing, you mentioned the Lulu, you mentioned the Tesla. I mean, you kind of see that same indicator now with the fair accounting for Bitcoin. And you mentioned that, their market cap is going to jump significantly as that continues to rip. I mean, I don't listen to every True North, but
it's a lot of content.
But I'm curious, what was the response like in the community? Was it one of disappointment? You had that big EPS blowout and no movement, right? Sort of a downward move. Do you view that as a sell the news? Do you view that as a natural reaction? Like, what was the community thought, and maybe what do you think about it?
Yeah, there was a lot of hope for repricing, and there wasn't necessarily repricing. It kind of went the opposite way. So that was an interesting perspective. Looking forward into the future, I think this becomes one of those undeniable things that's hard to. I think it's going to become undeniable in the future as this moves forward. Right? They just posted a $32 earning per share. 45 days through Q3, they're sitting on a $23 or $24 earnings per share. And when you start to look at everything else in the market and you start to compare these things, it becomes pretty glaringly obvious very quickly that a lot of the other equity in the existing marketplace is, in my opinion, mispriced, significantly overextended relative to a company with an incredibly strong balance sheet. And a Bitcoin treasury strategy and strategy are vastly misunderstood. And I think there's a lot of education and reevaluation about how to value these companies that needs to happen in the marketplace. So, I mean, that's something that I'm talking about very consistently. You've got the entire equity market right now is priced on expectation of future cash flows, which to me is a measure of financial strength. And you have this other valuation mechanism, which is looking at a balance sheet. So like Berkshire Hathaway or insurance companies or banks. And the really unique part about Strategy's balance sheet valuation is that they're sitting on an asset that's outperforming everything else in the market. And they're accumulating it at a faster rate than anybody else is accumulating it at any other pace in the market. So should you use a bank or a Berkshire Hathaway valuation mechanism to value the company? Probably not, because it's a different asset and a different structure. And you compare it to the other things in the market and it looks, the relative risk return trade-off looks significantly different. And I think there's a large portion of equities in the S&P 500, 493 of them are subject to AI disruption. And there's likely going to be a significant turnover in those companies in the S&P 500 as these Bitcoin treasury companies, strong balance sheet companies, crypto-backed companies, crypto exchanges, AI companies come into the fray and succeed and outpace some of these other companies.
All right, let's kick it over to Ahmad. I'm curious, you got thoughts, questions?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but what does Michael Saylor say when he's asked about the price?
He usually talks about Bitcoin. He doesn't talk about he talks about outperforming. He'll point to all the statistics. He's like, well, look at my stock over this horizon. It's outperformed everything else in the market. And look at it over this horizon. It's outperformed everything else in the market. Look at how much capital we've raised. Look at the these new instruments. A lot of the focus recently has been on these new instruments, which if you look at the new instruments, the performance is outstanding. They have outperformed every other fixed income instrument in the entire market, every other preferred equity instrument in the entire market. They're incredibly more liquid. They're over collateralized. They are whooping ass on every other fixed income instrument in the entire market. And they definitely point to that. If you go back and you look at the equity on the horizon from when they started buying Bitcoin, also whooping ass on everything else in the market. So that's what he points to, which I think is fair. And there's a reason you see other companies emulating this, is because the other companies emulating this are looking to raise capital and, put more capital into their coffers so they can whip ass on all these other companies in the market.
Jeff, okay, one last question, Ben. I don't want to hold you up, but I mean, you're a Bitcoin guy, you're an MSTR guy, you're the VP of Bitcoin buying and strategy at Strat. My eyes used to be a lot better. Sorry, I can't read that. What do you think outperforms, long term? Is it MSTR or Bitcoin? And I guess if the answer is Bitcoin, then, on what time horizon are you planning to sell your MicroStrategy stock or your sort of adjacent preferreds or debt structured vehicles?
Yeah, I don't plan on selling my strategy stock ever. I plan on holding that like for the rest of my life. Really,
is it just because it's a different a different bucket? Like I mean, in the States, you guys probably have these sort of assigned vehicles too, right? Like in Canada, we have tax efficient equity opportunities that I think a lot of Bitcoiners don't take advantage of incorrectly, in my view, though my peers would disagree with that. So is it just because they're different buckets you're holding one over the other, or because you think MSTR is going to outperform Bitcoin long term?
It's a little bit of both. It's a different bucket. It's an alternative exposure, but I think the world is just getting more digital in general. So I think there's a few things at play personally, from my opinion. One, all equities trade at a premium to their net asset value. So you go look at any of these companies, I think they're all going to continue to outperform.
Yep.
And all stocks are some expectation of future performance. So with that in mind, I do personally believe that strategy will trade at a higher multiple and will continue to outperform Bitcoin into the future.
Wow.
One of the reasons being is you look at all the value on the planet right now. Okay, there's 21 million Bitcoin, but there's millions and millions and millions of Bitcoin worth of value. Even if the world were fully denominated in Bitcoin and Bitcoin was the measuring stick for everything, like not every house in the world is going to be for sale at the same time. So there's going to be more than 21 million Bitcoin worth of value in the equity market, in the housing market, and all these other different marketplaces, because there's reasons for holding them, some sort of expectation for the future or store of value or whatever that may be. So it's a fun thought experiment, but like I'm going to be holding MSTR for a long time. Also, I can leverage against it far easier right now in any portfolio than I can with Bitcoin.
Yes, sir.
If I've got fully sovereign Bitcoin, I want it to be fully sovereign. I don't want to put it on exchange so I can go lever against it. I see Bitcoin as my complete savings mechanism. I don't want to do anything with it, and I want these other vehicles to do other things with.
Chat absolutely lit up here when the commentary.
Ahmad, you go ahead. I saw a hand.
Is it possible that people are just buying Bitcoin instead of buying MicroStrategy?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it is happening. There's two things in my mind. There's and honestly, it doesn't matter. Bitcoiners are buying Bitcoin because they like Bitcoin. They're super focused in it. The traditional financial world, just the way the architecture of the market is designed, there is passive flows coming into index funds every day. And it's going to continue into the future. You're not going to break that architecture. That architecture has been in place for a very long time and is not going to change. So what's going to continue happening is people are going to continue buying strategy into the future perpetually and not even know it. Anybody that buys the QQQ index, they're buying MicroStrategy. They don't even know it. So what are your incentives? Well, I want to front run all of those people, right? So I think about them just fundamentally differently. Bitcoiners are buying Bitcoin, and a lot of Bitcoiners that have bought MSTR and are frustrated with the performance are selling to go buy Bitcoin, which is fine. Like if you don't feel comfortable with it, like it is what it is, but they are just fundamentally different products.
Interesting. Well, I think I'm gonna put a pin in this topic for now because
that was great. Jeff, you really held your own there against some questions.
I'm used to it. We get a lot of fun.
Nothing he hasn't been barraged with, not questions he's not been barraged with already. I'm sure. But nonetheless, we are going to do a rotation here. We're going to take a quick break, but on the other side of it, we're going to find out why Dr. Ammous here is so bullish and hear all about his topic. And furthermore, later in the episode, myself and Joey are going to have a back and forth about this crazy Google
back and forth. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah,
sure.
We're gonna have a little bit of a discussion around this Google stuff. Which, by the way, while we've been on here, there's actually an update to that story. So we'll get to that when we get to it. So we're going to give a quick sponsor shout out for about a minute here, and on the other side of it, also make sure everybody that's watching. Drop a like and also get out your Lightning wallets because we'll give away a few sats when we get back. So we will see you in just a second. Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/BTCsessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions.
If you've been around Bitcoin for more than a minute, you've definitely seen something made by CryptoCloaks. Since 2017, they've been the go-to for badass 3D printed Bitcoin gear, from custom home mining rigs to sleek hardware wallet mounts that make your setup look pro. I've been stacking Cloaks gear for years, and most recently I grabbed their Gamma case for my miner. Let me tell you, it turns some heads. You can customize everything, and of course, the legendary Bitcoin grenade, yeah, that's them. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code to visit CryptoCloaks.com and stack your own custom Cloaks gear today.
DEBIFI is the best and easiest way to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Funds are held in a multisig escrow where you hold a key, and the platform allows for excellent hardware like the Cold Card Mark IV and the Q. You have access to flexible conditions, the best rates, and institutional grade liquidity. If you're looking to make use of your capital, don't sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it. You can head over to DEBIFI.com to check them out, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. All right, we are back in. We're going to give away some quick sats here before we get to our next reason for being bullish. So if you're watching, of course, I'm over here at Bitcoin Well, awesome place where you can stack sats in Canada and the US. And the way it works is when you sign up, when you buy Bitcoin, when you refer friends, you earn points, and you can either use those points to grab yourself some swag, or you can toss points and toss a coin into the well. And every time you do, you have the chance to win up to 1 million sats. So if you're watching right now, and you have a Lightning wallet handy, get it ready, because I'm going to toss a coin in the well, and whoever scans the QR code first with their Lightning wallet will steal the sats from everyone else. And it looks like 352 sats for whoever scans it first. So congrats, whoever does, and let us know in the chat if you snagged them before everyone else. But with that, we're going to dive into our next reason for being bullish. Dr. Ammous, I'm going to toss it over to you. Same question everybody gets, but why are you bullish? What's top of mind?
Yeah, I mean, so you could be bullish for something exciting in Bitcoin. You could also be bullish by just seeing how shitty Fiat is. And, this week in the hospital, it just hit me that living in a Fiat world, you're kind of lying to yourself that you are doing something productive, even though everything you're doing is just serving the money printer. And so this lying to yourself on a much, much deeper level, you are just in conflict with your own self. And it's kind of dark for people who are still stuck there. But it might be hopeful that, there's a lot of people that say that Bitcoin's gonna take over because, number go up technology. But it might also be that, just Fiat is just, the Fiat world is going to get so disgusting that people are going to need an alternative. So I wonder what your guys' thoughts on that are.
I mean, I think it's already getting pretty disgusting out there in terms of, I mean, it's, I'm gonna kind of talk about my experiences. I just got home yesterday from Baltic HONEYBADGER in Riga. So, hanging out with a bunch of Bitcoiners. And then of course I've got my normie friends. I've got, pre-Bitcoin friends, and I'd say just the general demeanor, and this is nothing that we haven't kind of discussed before, but the general demeanor of my average friends versus my Bitcoiner friends is one of like absolute nihilism versus, hope for the future. And so I see it play out in how people think about, where their life is headed, where society in general is headed, all of those things. And while my non-Bitcoin friends tend to be happy when like we elect Mark Carney as our prime minister, the economic advisor for Justin Trudeau, and think that this yet again will solve their problems somehow. it's almost like they hate the result of the very thing that they're helping prop up, whereas Bitcoiners, I find they look out at everything that's kind of happening in society and just the economic situation, and again, just the way that society kind of leeches away people's will to go on, but in a hopeful way. Like, you know, this is bad, but the solution is here, and people can grab hold of it if they choose to. And I say, just in general, it extends out to more than just your own kind of economic welfare. I've seen a lot of Bitcoiners, especially as of late, start paying more attention to their health as well. And there's been a number of people, either publicly or just kind of low key to themselves, that I've had discussions with, is, you know, they've gotten more comfortable economically, and then they've shifted their attention to, well, I can't benefit from my better economic position if I'm dead. And so then they start focusing on, okay, well, I'm going to start eating better. I'm going to start actually taking care of myself and exercising and staying away from garbage food, or, you know, getting a sick pair of blue blockers, you know, all of those things. They're being more conscientious about it. So, you know, to what Joey said too, like, I think, fiat life just gets so nihilistic that people exit it. I think that's a possibility. So I don't know. Do you guys want to chime in here?
Sure. I mean, I'm preaching to the converted here, but does anyone really look, even if you're not a Bitcoiner, does anyone really look at their life and think it's better than it was in the 90s? Like, I'm an 87. I think, Ben, you're around my age. Jeff, you look around my age. Ahmad, maybe you're our age, a little bit older. I don't know. But like, does anyone really think that life now for a kid who's like 13 is better in the year of our Lord 2025 than it was in 1996? You used to go to McDonald's and get a proper size hamburger, proper size fries. It wasn't a shitty Korean widget toy in the Happy Meal. It was a fucking 1996 Athens Olympics hat. Okay. You remember that? Like, these times are gone. They're not coming back. And I say this to my wife all the time, and I'm sure you guys do as well. When you think about, you know, the sort of gap that's emerging between you as a Bitcoiner, whether you have a big stack of Bitcoin or not, doesn't even matter, is clear as day, because your time preference has changed. The way you think about your relationships has changed. Ben, like you said, and Doc, you're in the same boat. The way you think about your health has changed. Not that you're unhealthy, Jeff. I'm sure you think this way too. Sorry, I left you out there. That wasn't nice. We're all thinking about it. And, you know, when I think about my own sort of story, like, I was way more reckless with my money, with my time, with my relationships as a, you know, 20-year-old, 25-year-old even, than I am now. And while I think that's a sign of sort of natural maturity, what I would also say is you've changed your view of value. Not only the value you put on, you know, steaks and veggies at the store, but how about the value you put on yourself? Like, you know, I know now that all the time I've spent researching stuff and learning stuff. And when I talk to people about things that interest me or interest them, I want that time to be valuable to me at the end of the day. When I talk to my friends about their family or their interests or what they've been up to, I want that time to be valuable to me and to them at the end of the day. And if I'm not the best version of myself, then I'm not valuing their time. And if I'm talking to people who don't care about their own outcomes, then I'm not valuing my time. And so if you start thinking this way, the change in the way that your life looks compared to your friends who are, you know, hammering a tall boy every night to unwind, or skipping the gym because they have a cramp or whatever, like that gap compounds, okay, over time. And you can maybe get over those hurdles in your 20s. But I will tell you, at nearly 38, and I think, Ben, maybe did you just turn 40? Do I have that right?
Yeah, I just hit the
so like, I mean, you're pretty much cooked. But I mean, at 38, it's harder and harder to get over those compounding mistakes and compounding, you know, errors in the way you manage your time and manage your own value. And Bitcoin helps with that. There's no doubt.
Yeah. I do want to also just kind of, again, quickly. First off, actually, everybody in the room and watching right now, happy new all-time high. We're at like 123.5.
Hey.
So congrats. But nonetheless, I did want to to kind of push back on those times aren't coming back. I'm going to say that those times aren't coming back for everyone, but there's going
Good point.
to be a subset of people where those times are already back. I was sitting about 2 days ago in a beautiful kind of European town square with Madex, Eric Yakes, and Efrat Fenningson. And we're all sitting there munching on a steak and just like looking out at the beautiful scenery and we just came from like a gym workout and a cold plunge and a sauna and all that. We're just kind of sitting back and we're talking about, pitching Bitcoin and how our approaches have changed, or that we don't really pitch it to new people anymore. We just kind of, if they want to ask, they can come to us. And Madex was like, he's like, fuck, man, the pitch for me now is just like, there, look at that, man. There, I don't know what to tell you. We're kind of going back and forth talking about how we don't pitch it, and then we just all kind of sat back quietly, taking another bite of steak in this beautiful town square. And then Madex leans forward and he's like, "But aren't you guys worried about the volatility?" I was just like having the time of our lives. So, point being, those times are coming back as people are able to get past, whatever their blockers are with, being able to just kind of conservatively put away and save in a money that nobody can print. So that's where I'm at. I'll toss it to Jeff and get his thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, this stuff has totally fundamentally changed my life. I've experienced some fiat bad things just in the last couple of days. Maybe I'll explain them, but maybe like a quick story, a little background. I mean, I grew up lower middle class, like relatively poor, and I needed to learn about finance because I was like, I'm never going to be in this situation ever again. So I went to college, got a business and economics degree. I took every finance class I could possibly take. I got a job working in finance in Seattle, worked in it for a decade, and, got married, got a wife, got a house, and working in Seattle. And I just kept working harder and harder and harder. My wife was also working harder and harder and harder. And we saw zero probability of having the safety to have a family. And that was super depressing. And we're just like, okay, we're not having kids because I don't want to take on financial bankruptcy risk to have a kid in this ecosystem. And this totally sucks. And then, all that shifted when I found Bitcoin. So, and now Bitcoin and strategy and, thinking about these things differently and kind of adopting a Bitcoin treasury strategy personally for myself and pressing it when I thought I was right. And now that has fundamentally changed my life. And I'm in a position where I can think about potentially having a family and the future of what that looks like that just didn't exist prior to this. And I'm incredibly thankful. I mean, it's added hope to my life that I never had before. And I feel despite the volatility, I feel stronger and healthier and more safe than I've ever felt. And it's just crazy. And even just yesterday, I had to drive up to Seattle. We had our house broken into and our air conditioner stolen. And these people were these meth addicts were smoking cigarettes in our bathtub and all this shit. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so fiat. I can't deal with this. This is crazy. And then you look at the value of these homes. I'm like, how, none of this makes any sense. And I need to get out of this as soon as possible. And it's just, I see it you have these fiat lenses and you can see it everywhere, all around you. And it's been nice to exit that system and have a lot more hope in my life. So, yeah, it's crazy.
Well, how big was the air conditioner? Meth heads are not that strong.
It was a window
so,
air conditioner, heavy as shit.
like, it's hard for me to believe that a couple
are
of guys
so
with like,
strong.
declining bone density and no VO2 max are getting that air conditioner out and then having a cigarette after they're done.
Yeah,
What?
just like taking a shower and
No.
using the bed that's in there, and no, it's all crazy, man. This is the second time we had our house broken into too, so it was just.
Well,
Yeah.
Seattle's Seattle, Washington, I take it, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a paradise for a number of reasons. We don't have to get into that,
Tough
but
part. Yeah, it's like it's gorgeous, but you got the issues. You got
yeah. Did they send is Seattle at the point in the decline of the empire where instead of sending police to robberies, they send a mental health professional? Are you there yet? Because I know we're getting there over here. So
I drove 10 hours in a car yesterday to go there and back. And I called the police before I left. And I said, hey, somebody broke into our house. Our neighbor called us like, hey, like your window's open, the gate's open, like you should go check. And we're like, oh my God, we have squatters in our house. We're gonna like our brains just go instant anxiety.
Yeah.
And so we called the cops and they're like, okay, we'll send somebody over. And we're like, okay, they're probably not gonna send anybody over. So we drove there and back. That spent 10 hours in the car. And by the time we walked in the front door, the cops called us like, hey, we got here. And it's just like, you guys are useless.
These tax dollars that hard at work, my friends. Amazing.
A lot of fiat problems in my life recently.
Well, it is messed up, right? Like even, I was talking to Ahmad about this on our show the other night, just like the sort of decline in the quality of healthcare you get in Canada.
Oh my God.
I mean, I'm paying a lot of money for healthcare in this country. And I popped a wheel on my person last week. I tore my ACL on my right knee, and I knew I did it because I did it on my other knee like 15 years ago. And so I went to my doctor, I got the MRI referral, and I said like, I'm just gonna take this to Buffalo. I'm not gonna wait for the MRI. I said, just out of curiosity, like how long would this take? He goes, because it's not, because he couldn't confirm with the test they usually do. I don't know what it's called, the like pivot test for your knee, that it was torn. He said, we'd put you on like the sort of middle priority. It would take 6 months. I went to Buffalo for the MRI. It cost me $800. I drove for an hour. My dad came with me. We stopped for lunch in St. Catharines. It was nice. And I walked out of there after like 15 minutes in a brand new MRI machine with the results of the MRI. And like, in Canada, you pay, God, like an unseen, but also ungodly amount of money for many people into this system. And unless you show up in an ambulance at an ER with an acute identifiable problem, the likelihood that you're seen by a professional that's going to be competent enough to treat you, or not burnt out, or able to, perform the sort of diagnostics that really need to be done in a lot of cases, you're just not getting your money's worth, to put it like plainly. And this is so obviously a problem with the currency and with the money and with the incentives. There's an unwillingness to address it. I know I brought up the mental health thing, a second ago, but Toronto police, the city refuses to give their police service a budget increase every year. It's a fight in the media. The media wants nothing to do with increasing the police budget. There's people naked doing crack, harassing women on the subways in Toronto. And the mayor the other day took a break from dancing at summer festivals in a fucking bikini to make an announcement on a subway platform that now there's going to be healthcare professionals on the subway to make sure that naked crack user is not going to experience a mental health crisis on the subway. There's gonna be someone there to talk them through it. As if that's what anybody wants.
Yeah.
As if that's what anybody needs. And as if that's the actual problem we're trying to solve. And there's an unwillingness from the fiat world to identify themselves as the parasitic problem. It's always going to be like that. And in Bitcoin, to your point about MADEXs, I don't even pitch people anymore. I just don't care anymore about that stuff. I don't engage with people on the topic. I just have the resources now, thanks to Bitcoin, to say, I'm not riding the subway. I'm not waiting for the MRI. I'm not going to participate in this. I'm going to go somewhere where my time is valued and I can use the value that I've accrued to do something for me, for my family, for whoever. And it's always going to be like that for Bitcoiners. And like I said, that gap is going to be so much more obvious in a few years. We're making all-time highs here. I mean, do you think it's going to be less obvious at 500K who the Bitcoin, holders are or were? I think if you haven't started holding it, you ought to, because at some point you will be affected by the inability of fiat authorities to diagnose a problem and to solve it. And you don't want it to be at a time where your life is on the line, or the life of a loved one is on the line, or there's a vagrant smoking a cigarette in your bathtub. Like you don't want this to be the time that you find out.
Yeah. I would, and I'll maybe toss this over to Dr. Ammous here as well. But my general thought in and around, kind of exiting that and the very clear differentiation of quality of life that's going to start to present itself. I think that, as you said, Bitcoiners will just get to the point where they're like, I'm not going to participate here. I'm just going to go out and I'm going to find somebody who's good at what they do. I think that in general, Bitcoiners or the people that are good at what they do and actually create quality things and, provide quality services, I think those people become Bitcoiners, and I think Bitcoiners become, are forced to become really good at certain things because they'll recognize that it's harder to separate a Bitcoiner and their sats unless you're offering something that's worth it. And I think there's going to come a time where everybody's like, why is this one subset of people ultra rich, ultra healthy, and has all the best shit that doesn't break?
Yeah.
Like, why is this happening? And I feel like that's what's, like, again, we're doing our little circular market here in Calgary, and people are, like the farmers, the cattle farmers, the people creating like quality things are migrating to that. We've got dentists and we've got people that personal trainers and stuff like that, and I'm starting to notice like a quality of paying attention to one's craft that is present in those people. And I think we'll see more of that. My worry is that the people that go the opposite route, as so often do, will have the knee-jerk reaction that doesn't look for second and third order effects. They just see, you have stuff, I do not. You did this to me. Like, I think it's just like the same people that go to the grocery store, groceries are more expensive, and they blame the grocer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. But Dr. Ammous, I'm curious if, you are an example of somebody that, is orange pilled, understanding what's going on, and also understanding kind of the underlying issues in your realm, which is medicine. How do you see your particular field of expertise changing for those that recognize what's going on versus those that don't?
Yeah, I think, the medicine as we know it right now needs to collapse. There's no way we can fix this system. It's already too broken to be fixed. And I think what's going to happen is people are just going to start creating an alternative system on the side. A more peer-to-peer, less centralized system where you're working with your doctor directly. You're working with the guy who runs the MRI machine directly. And that's just going to grow more and more on the side, and until nobody is going to the fiat medical field. And I think that's our way out.
Yeah. I would echo it.
It's interesting, right? Like Dr. Ammous is basically describing what we have in Canada now. And it's funny, when I talk to my peers up here in the 51st, I hear the same thing all the time, that they don't want two-tier healthcare, two-tier medicine, two-tier whatever. And I say to them, like, the thing about the two-tier system is that if you don't think it's two-tier already, you're in the bottom tier. And you're going to find that more and more people start to enter that tier, and then it's going to be hard for you to get out of it because things are going to be so bad. But I think Ahmad is right. Like, why isn't there a guy with an MRI machine in Toronto taking appointments? New MRI machines. I think the last time I did this to my knee was like I said, 15 years ago. I must have spent 40 minutes in that buzzing tube. It's like a dubstep fever dream. And then I go to Buffalo, and like I said, it's 15 minutes and the machine looks brand new. Like, I could put it in my washroom. My wife wouldn't be upset about the aesthetic. And it's just like so obvious there's two tiers. But our leaders in the places where things are failing the most obviously tell you not to believe your eyes and ears, right? There's that saying, the empire's biggest lie was telling you not to believe what you see or something like that. And in Canada, it's bad. Like it's really bad. And people, I think, just don't understand quite, how bad it is because they don't have the resources to see, the greener grass on the other side of the hill.
I had a discussion with a friend. I'm going to say about somewhere between 6 and 12 months ago, but we were discussing, we wish that like in Canada for important things, you had the option of just paying, like my father-in-law has major problems with his back right now to the point where they're like, you shouldn't do too many physical activities because you may become a paraplegic. Like that's how bad it is. He has problems with his legs at times, and it's not good. It's not ideal. And they told him like, just like try not to do things. And he's like waiting for this appointment. He's already been waiting for an appointment just to figure out what's going on for over a year.
Ben, he's paid his whole life for that appointment. Yeah. And he's not getting it.
And it's still probably months, if not a year out. And then when he gets in and he finds out what's wrong, it'll probably be another year before they even do a thing about it. And so I'm talking to my friend about this, and I'm like, I wish there was just like within Canada, just private option. What we'll probably end up doing is, if it's bad enough, we'll just, because Bitcoin has given us the opportunity we'll just take them somewhere else and just get it done.
States, man. Go to the States.
Yeah. And so then the friend was like, well, no, we can't have a private option because what will happen is all of the good doctors will go over to the private, and then all the crappy doctors will be part of the public option, and everybody will get crappy healthcare. I'm like, okay, let's say that's how it plays out. Doesn't that, first of all, it's already doing a shit job to the point where my father-in-law's choice is basically stop doing things at all in your late 60s or risk being paralyzed and just hang out for the next 3 years until we maybe do something about it. Or if that was the case, that he had the option within Canada, go pay for it. And would that not then take some of the pressure off of the public system because the people that are willing to pay will go over there? How could it be worse than what it is right now? How could it be worse than what we currently have? And the funny thing about it was later on, different part of the conversation. I was getting a lot of flight anxiety last year. And so I mentioned that I had gone in and said, what can I do about this? Like, I don't know how to grapple with it. And they were like, well, it's short term. Like if you wanted to, you could have like some Ativan to kind of just like make you not freak out and like sleepy on a flight instead. They're like, you can do that, but realistically it's, you need to actually deal with it. Maybe sit down with somebody, like just actually talk through it and everything. They're like, if you want to do that, we could probably get you in next year. When do you fly? It's like, are you? And so then the friend said, oh, just go pay for it. Like I had to do that for a reason. And I won't like specify, but like they were like, I had to go and like get some help with something. And I paid and I was in like a day later, and thank God, because so I'm like, hold on. So you just said that this couldn't possibly work for major surgeries, but you just said it literally saved you when you needed some mental health help.
Yeah.
Like
the big problem you have is that the flights are taking you too long to just have like 2 grab balls and pass out. Yeah. You don't even need a prescription for those, and I don't think there's any long-term side effects there.
It's just I don't think that people they don't step back and realize like they're holding 2 competing thoughts.
Well, the other thing too, like you're describing there, all the shit doctors are going to work on the free system. All the shit doctors are already working on the free system. Look at the fucking outcomes in Canada. I just saw a story, some kid not far from me, I think, or maybe, I don't know. There's been so many of these stories, Jeff and Ahmad, you guys may not keep up with this because in the 51st, there's stories in the papers every week about something of this nature, something in this vein. Some kid showed up at the hospital with a bad headache that was getting worse. And just the hospital refused to test. They were giving him water, giving him pain meds, whatever. Kid ended up dying of a blood clot. He's in there for like 7 hours. He's like 18 years old, 16 years old, something like that. And you see this all the time up here. Again, like Ben, in your father-in-law's case, he's 60 something. He's paid into the system forever. And, now that he needs it. And by the way, you should hope that you live long enough to need it, because the alternative is not as pleasant. You're not going to get the help you need. And then what do? Like your earning power has decreased in your 60s so significantly that you can't pick up a couple extra shifts at Walmart. Walmart won't even hire you as a greeter because you're not a temporary foreign worker. So you can't even put the smiley face sticker on a kid coming in there for a few bucks an hour to get your back consult. Then when you get the back consult, like you mentioned, the solution is not, and Ahmad, you'll agree with this too. The solution is not, here's some exercises to strengthen that sort of structure and help you get back on your feet so you can do things that, a 60-year-old, albeit mobility limited, can do again. The solution is just lie on your back until we get to you.
Yeah. And I just wanted to point out this was from earlier this year, beginning of the year. More than 74,000 Canadians have died on healthcare wait lists since 2018. And in 2023, 2024 alone, 15,500 Canadians died alone before receiving various surgeries or diagnostic scans. Yeah. The true number is likely double.
Minimum. How many people don't have family doctors here?
Yeah.
Like it's a super high number, right? I don't know. I mean, this is not Bitcoin related, obviously, but it is a sensitive subject. I can tell for you, Ben, it is for me too. And I think a lot of people don't realize that number compounds when you add stuff like addictions, addicts who can't get help, when you add stuff like kids who can't get help, when you add stuff like parents who don't know how to handle a pregnancy, when you add stuff like, there's any number of edge cases that when all stuck together don't no longer represent an edge case sum of people. It's a large chunk of people who are not getting help, and many are dying or winding up in situations where they end up costing the system more because the problem worsens or whatever. I mean, this is not hard to figure out. You don't need to call KPMG to tell you that you shouldn't have a 16-hour waiting room lineup because those conditions cost more as they get worse.
Yeah. Comment of the day, by the way.
Yeah. What's to say there?
Robert, just get on the MAID wait list.
Yeah, let's do it.
Medically assisted dying wait list, and Gulag says in Canada the suicide hotline calls you. We laugh, but it's so
okay, let's get on this wallet thing. We're gonna go toe to toe, I guess.
Before
we start, I just want to tell you that I see you're posting thirst traps online. I want you to know that's my corner, number one. And number two, I'm not going to take anything you say seriously unless I see you repping 225 on the squat bar. It should be the bench bar, but I will do the squat bar because I think that you should have to do 225 before your opinions are taken with
all right,
with any real seriousness.
I'm close. I'm not quite at the 225.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll let it slide. Okay.
We'll see. When I get that, I will. I'll shoot you the video.
Okay.
I'll thread it together with a couple more thirst traps. We're gonna attack that. We're gonna get on this Google Wallet ban licensing thing. We're gonna do a quick sponsor shout out for a sec, and we'll be back in just a moment to tell you guys what the hell is going on. Did Google just ban non-KYC Bitcoin wallets? So we'll see in a sec. Looking for a simple and secure way to manage your Bitcoin on mobile? AQUA Wallet has you covered. It's user-friendly and puts you in full control of your Bitcoin with secure self-custody. AQUA also supports Lightning and Liquid Network, making fast, cheap Bitcoin payments and asset transfers easier than ever. Plus, it even supports stablecoins, giving you ultimate flexibility. Built on open source code, AQUA is transparent, trustworthy, and perfect for beginner and pros alike. Ready to upgrade your Bitcoin experience? Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen now to download AQUA Wallet today. Securing your Bitcoin doesn't have to be complicated or invasive. With NUNCHUK's HONEYBADGER plan, you get state-of-the-art multisig with built-in inheritance planning and no KYC required. NUNCHUK is trusted by users to secure billions of dollars in Bitcoin. The HONEYBADGER plan offers 204 assisted multisig, guiding you step-by-step on mobile or desktop. It works seamlessly with hardware wallets like TapSigner, ColdCard, Jade, and plenty of others, so you're always in control. Plus, with non-KYC inheritance planning, you can ensure your Bitcoin goes to your loved ones. No private info needed. Take control of your Bitcoin today. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen to check out the HoneyBadger plan. CoinKite has been in the game for years, creating hands down the best and most secure hardware when it comes to securing your Bitcoin. The Cold Card Q is an absolute powerhouse and my daily driver, and it's ideal for newcomers and advanced users alike. The Tap Signer gives you a low-cost, user-friendly option for those just getting started or for convenience when traveling. You can head to coinkite.com and use code Btcsessions for discounts, or simply scan the QR code on the screen to get started right away. All right, we're back in, and I am going to give you guys a little rundown of what the hell's going on here. So this is an article over on therage.co, and the article is entitled Google Play Store Bans Wallets That Don't Have a Banking License. So the long and the short of it is that Google just updated or introduced a policy that requires any software wallet developer to obtain a license before publishing cryptocurrency wallet apps to the Google Play Store, quote, to ensure a safe and compliant ecosystem for users. It targets 15 jurisdictions, including the EU and the United States, laying out which regulations Google Play Store expects software wallet developers to comply with. The actual policy is here. And it says it looks to encompass both exchanges and software wallets. So it says Google Play has established specific guidelines for the publication of cryptocurrency exchanges and software wallets. And then when you go down by region, for instance, Canada, the developer must register with FinTrack as a money service business. If you go down to the UK, the developer must register with the Financial Conduct Authority. In the US, the developer must be either registered with FinCEN as a money service business and with a state as a money transmitter, or a federal or state chartered bank entity. And in EU, must be authorized as a crypto asset service provider under the Markets in Crypto Assets regulation by a relevant national competent authority. Any other local legal requirements, including any national level restrictions or requirements beyond MiCA, must also be complied with. They've got some nuance around France and Germany as to when that will be required. So the update here, this is interesting. So this is the Rage posting the article. News from Google, which it does have the golden check mark here. I was trying to figure out if it was a legitimate account. Apparently verified because it's an affiliate of Google, and again has the fancy check mark. But it says, thanks for flagging this. Non-custodial wallets are not in the scope of Google Play's cryptocurrency exchanges and software wallets policy. We are updating the help center to make this clear. So it would appear that for the time being, everybody's freaking out on X and everything. Rightfully so, I will say. But it would appear that for right now, for a little bit, we may be in the clear. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't stay vigilant and also figure out what the hell would you do in a situation where this does happen. And I do think that eventually this will happen. So, Joey, I want to get your thoughts first. I want to get Jeff's thoughts and Dr. Ammous's thoughts on just kind of the general idea of the possibility that we could have self-custody Bitcoin wallets fall under regulations that require registration.
Yeah, I think it's going to happen for sure. I view this as a trial balloon. You know, it's for that's the most generous interpretation I'll give it. You know, I have a couple of beefs with the Bitcoiners, and you know, Ben, you tweeted something like this too. The people who think that this is going to be as simple as like sideloading an APK or running something on your computer or compiling some code from Git that lets you put together a wallet like this, I would point out a couple of things. Okay. the Samurai and Tornado Cash rulings were both about money transmission. And so, you have these wallets that have tried this in the past. And when the Leviathan decides that it wants to put you under its thumb, it will put you under its thumb. That's rule number one about dealing with the Leviathan, okay? The second thing I would point out is that sideloading an APK is not quite as simple as just going to F-Droid or Zap or whatever the other options out there are and saying, yeah, I'm going to put this on my phone and use it. As less and less people use the services, it is much easier to identify those who are still on these platforms. And, there's a lot of psychology behind the chilling effect. It doesn't take much in terms of a public, obvious, well-known person getting attacked by the state for their use of these licenseless money transmission services to stop other people from using it. That's number two. I'll add a couple more things here, and then I'll just make another note about this particular case. Money transmission is exactly what these apps are doing by any definition. And as Bitcoin grows in price and market cap, and as stuff like MSTR becomes more and more popular, it's going to be hard to keep hiding. We were really fortunate during the COVID years, really fortunate during the 2010s to be sort of a laughingstock, right? We were the sort of butt end of the joke in a lot of places, in economic circles, in tech circles, in equity circles, and all sorts of other places. And we were under the radar for a long time. And we are no longer under the radar. In fact, we are like loud and proud, in a lot of cases, I think too loud and proud about the progress we've made in terms of the sort of dominance that we've put on display especially over the last 2 or 3 years. But you can make the case that since inception, we've really destroyed all comers and shown no mercy, given no quarter to anyone who has come in our path. You're no longer at the point now where you're fiddling on the margins with loopholes in laws and saying, well, it's not money transmission, it's just bits, it's just ones and zeros. Like the thing that I think Bitcoiners get wrong at the worst times, because they don't get it wrong all the time, but they get it wrong at the worst times, is the government is a rational actor. They're a rational actor insofar as they're willing to protect their own interests at any cost, whether it's children overseas or putting an app developer in jail. It's both those things and everything in between. And the government doesn't, rule with an iron fist. It's actually worse than that. They change the definitions of laws. They get support from tech giants. And by the time you realize what's happening, it's often too late. Now, on this particular story, I'll just note one thing, that, there's obviously a pullback here a little bit from YouTube. It's very hard for me, or from Google, it's very hard for me to view this with anything but a skeptical lens. The language is very clear. In the original press release, they had exactly what you'd expect to see for a wallet in terms of licensing and KYC requirements, again, by any definition, United States, Canada, or otherwise. And I would also note that as a company, Google today announced that starting in August, they'll be doing AI age recognition on videos for all users who are participating in that platform. And I would just ask you, Bitcoiner, do you think that the same company who's running AI age recognition to quote unquote protect children, obvious bullshit, is actually sorry for their error? What was it? A fucking typo? The table and everything else was a typo? Was that it? Was it a early draft that wasn't meant to go out yet? Do you really think that same company is going to allow on its platform these apps that make you sovereign? And I'll just maybe one last point. Do you think the government in the United States has nothing to do with it at all? These things are arms of the government. There is no arm's length. I don't think this is conspiratorial. I think it's obvious. It's obvious to anyone who participates in this environment. It's the same in Canada, the UK, everywhere. The clamps are coming down not only on Bitcoin, but on anything that allows you to have a private conversation at scale, because private conversations are the enemy of the state in a way that they have never been before, thanks to technology like Bitcoin, 3D printing. It's easy to become difficult to corral now very quickly. And so the only way to do this is to smother it in the cradle. And as someone said in the chat, Bitcoin is toothpaste that is out of the tube, but you'd be surprised how many people, to Ben's point, have no fucking idea how to send a transaction without a wallet. And I think this is going to come for Sparrow too at some point, by the way, because by these definitions, again, if the state wants to persecute these companies and make examples of them, it'd be very easy to do. Craig Raw doesn't have the resources to fight the United States government, nor does he have the, time, or I would guess, I don't know the man, but the sort of interest required to pursue a decade-long case where the outcome is predetermined. They run you dry of all the resources you've accumulated, Bitcoin, fiat, or otherwise. It takes a toll on your relationships, takes a toll on your health. And, show me the record of the United States government when fighting these things. I think the PGP case was a lesson that they learned the hard way, and they're not going to learn that lesson a second time, unfortunately.
Interesting. I want to get comments from Jeff and Ahmad, so I'll let you guys chime in, and I've got a few things that I'll tag in after. But Jeff, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And Joey, just like at the very beginning where you said you didn't know a lot of the words that I was saying, a lot of the words you were saying there, I didn't know as well. And I think that's, ultimately one of the challenges, I think, with Bitcoin and the ecosystem itself is that access to using these things takes a lot of education. It's difficult to get a large population to follow and be interested in doing these things. And one of the perspectives I have is that, like, money itself is kind of genetic. Like, what you know about money is kind of genetic, in that it's what your parents knew about money and it's what their parents knew about money. And in order to break out of that, it takes a lot of time, energy, effort, and there needs to be something that's forcing you out of that. And I think that's something that's going to continue to be a hurdle, is like getting a lot of energy behind these problems. And I know it's happening right now, like energy is going to be getting behind these problems, but a lot of people don't know what these problems are. And even if they hold Bitcoin, and that's, I think it's going to be hard to get people to wrap their heads around that. So just something to keep in mind out there. And I think that's where the importance of having these other, I guess, good actors in the space, and we can argue whether or not they're good actors or not, but these companies that are adopting Bitcoin as a treasury reserve asset is helpful for the ecosystem, because it's going to continue to push more energy and provide opportunity for people that care deeply about these things to fight it, because there's going to be capital behind it. Like the people that hold these assets are going to be able to deploy capital and energy efficiently to continue to fight it. So I don't know. I think incentives are aligned really, really well. And I think Bitcoiners should rejoice in how everybody's using it, because it, like, any capital that's coming into play here is helping give the entire Bitcoin ecosystem continued power to fight these things and continue to push decentralization and separate communication, private communication forward as much as possible.
Do you think that Saylor has a responsibility to galvanize people behind pushing back against something like this? What is his level of responsibility when a bit of legislation like this comes out? I'll level with you. Maybe you and Mike have a DM chat. I don't know. I did not get a panel on the MSTR earnings call. That's all I'll say. and I'm curious, what the sort of thought, what your thoughts are on what should he say or not say about rulings like this. The Samurai and Tornado Cash rulings happened after MSTR adopted Bitcoin as a treasury asset. He was silent on both. There's some the generous term would be ambiguity with the language he uses about self-custody, medium of exchange, things of this nature. And obviously there's, perceived or real conflict on the financial side regarding whether or not paper Bitcoin summer should, like Pride summer, turn into something that is all season long, all year long, all of a sudden, thanks to the government telling me that should be that way. I really do think that he should say something, but what do you think he should or shouldn't say about it?
Yeah, it's a tough question. At what point is there a level of responsibility for the outcome of this? Who should be saying things about it?
I don't know. Like we do, obviously, but we are much less consequential and don't have the SEC breathing down our neck every time we do a public appearance. So I don't know what his responsibility level should be or is, and what he's allowed to say or what his C-suite is allowed to say. But in my head, a guy who talks about Bitcoin as the apex asset must have at least a rudimentary understanding of what makes it the apex asset, and this cripples part of that ability set. And he doesn't say anything about it. And so that, to me, that's frustrating. I will grant that it's very early in this particular instance, but I expect that there's going to be radio silence from the entire MSTR crew about this.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult to talk about it quickly, because anything that you do say is now public record. It's something like the game theory of speaking out on this specific circumstance isn't great. Like that, there's not a ton of benefit and pretty much only downsides. Just like politically, economically, for the stock, like for everything. So I understand the framework and perspective. Honestly, I personally need to get a little bit more educated on these problems and challenges to have a better perspective.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I think that the concept of the creation of perfect money, and it's working right now, and not like don't mess with it, I think is a little bit of I think that's carrying a lot of weight right now.
Ahmad, I'm curious your thoughts on even though Google saying, you know, this was a mistake, it's not supposed to encapsulate non-custodial wallets there. You know, do you think that this is something that's coming for us eventually? You know, and what do you think the response will be if it does?
I mean, I don't know. I think maybe I have a too simplistic view of this, but KYC, non-KYC, I think we are still going to destroy the central banks, and that's all that matters.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, my worry is that I think in the absence of being able to, at least within small groups and like communities, being able to self-custody and use Bitcoin freely, I worry that we get effectively a repeat of kind of, you know, oh, well, yeah, is Bitcoin better? Obviously, like for preserving purchasing power, all those types of things. But do we just get, all right, Bitcoin's now backing the currency because nobody wants the fiat, but then, you know, give it a generation and we get Nixon 2.0, right? We backed the currencies again by, you know, for the gold 2.0 type deal, and then it just gets rug pulled again within a generation. Like I just don't see it as a win if that's all we get. Maybe the auditability helps prevent that, because you don't get the situation we got with the US where they were already debasing the gold-backed currency, and it took a few people kind of cluing into that and beginning to ask for their gold back. But it would be pretty evident immediately if you digitally had dollars backed by Bitcoin that there would be debasement. So yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is.
What about like, you know, it's funny thinking about the 6102 thing. I think the 6102 thing is like, at least I did until like 2 hours ago. Thought it was more or less like a, you know, nonsense kind of tuna can prepper type scenario. But if you run this thought experiment, you don't have to run it that far. You know, when self-custody Bitcoin becomes too difficult to use to be valuable to you, then there is, you know, good guy government stepping in and going, don't worry about it. We'll pay you, you know, market value USD for your Bitcoin, knowing that we're inflating the currency at 10% a year. And we'll take that off your hands, no problem. That's really, it does lend itself kind of to that theory. The other thing, a couple of years ago, I had Chris Irons quote the Raven on CBP, and one of the things he said, and he was a brand new Bitcoin at the time. One of the things he said was, anything governments do now that inhibits or restricts or tries to contain the potency of Bitcoin will be viewed as a whimper, not a roar, because everyone can see that the currency is dying and that it's the end of this sort of debt-based regime, these 40 and 80 year cycles colliding. I mean, whatever school of economics you want to follow, I think all of them have a theory for what's going on right now, and none of them end with, on a positive note. But I'm so surprised still to see stories like this and see governments cracking down on Bitcoin, or see like El Salvador's government really failing in terms of its Bitcoin mission. And instead of people going, damn, that was really something that gave me hope that there was something better on the horizon. It's like you said earlier, Ben, no one has Bitcoin or has enough Bitcoin or has disposable income to buy Bitcoin. And so when a new grave, shows up in the cemetery, they get their tap dancing shoes on, right? They don't go with the black suit. And I think a lot of people now are in that mode because, like we talked earlier, price is ripping. Like no one on this stream really did anything. Might have been like a head nod and a fist bump, but that's about it.
Yeah.
Other people are really suffering big time, and they don't want to see you succeed. And they want to be able to say that, I told you 5 years ago the government would ban Bitcoin, or I told you 5 years ago that they'd never let you spend it, that it was too dangerous, that it financed terrorism, all these things that Tornado Cash guys got hit with. Tornado Cash, obviously more Ethereum, but the sort of premise still holds. There's a lot of people who want to see this thing die, and they may only express those views on a voodoo doll on a Thursday night, but they really do feel like that. And a lot of those guys, Jeff, I would guess in TradFi, I mean, I see you used to, I don't know if you still do this, but you used to tweet all the time that TradFi bewilderment was increasing. And so like this bewilderment, these guys want this thing to fail because nobody likes being bewildered. Right. Nobody likes getting on stage at a conference and having, the punter raise his hand and go, yeah, this is all good. Like, I appreciate your 60 slide deck, but you're underperforming Bitcoin by 200%. And I'm wondering why. Nobody wants to answer those questions anymore. And so whether you're a guy who's only able to afford Lucky Charms and, other government slop, or you're a guy who spent his whole career analyzing charts and you're mad that no one values the skill anymore, the failure, I think, is the preferred outcome for a huge majority of people. And so galvanizing the Bitcoiners behind these causes is important, because you ain't going to galvanize the public. That's for sure.
I wanted to kind of chat about why I think in the end, this is still bullish.
Okay. All right.
Because I think
it's all bullish.
That's right.
It's all bullish. Everything's bullish. Yeah.
Higher.
I honestly think if they tried to pull this shit, it will still fail. Maybe it would be a huge pain in the ass for a period of time, but I think it will still fail. I was just in Riga. One of my favorite presentations that I got to watch was Calais. He's working on eCash. He's doing the cashew thing, but he finished his presentation. He was doing a thing on privacy, and he finished with the Phil Zimmerman quote: "If privacy is outlawed, only outlaws will have privacy." And I kind of want to outline what I think would come to fruition if this were to take place. I think it would kind of echo what we saw with like the coin join coordinators and all that kind of stuff. Now, would a number of people, would a bunch of people maybe just comply and get the licensed Bitcoin wallets? Yeah, sure. People always use the easiest possible thing until the easiest possible thing is really a burden. But what I think would likely come to fruition. So earlier beginning last year, we saw, Samurai Wallet shut down, their service taken down, everything. Unfortunately, they've entered a plea deal for the whole money transmission thing. We also saw Wasabi Wallet with their CoinJoin. They sunsetted their
I forgot about that.
yeah, they sunsetted their CoinJoin coordinator just sheerly out of fear. But what we saw come to fruition is that, you know, other coordinators started popping up in the wild. So we saw a new Wasabi CoinJoin coordinator pop up, and you can still use the software, and you just literally plunk in a little URL into the settings, and now you have CoinJoin again with Wasabi. We also saw a fork of Samurai Wallet pop up, Ashigaru. And so as of now, and it's not just the wallet, it's like you can full on run Whirlpool again. And the reason you can do it is because a group of developers forked the open source project and said, fuck it, we're going to, you know, protect our identities as best we can, which obviously the Samurai devs tried to, but one of them was already, you know, they were already kind of publicly known in the first place. I think what you see is developers just go fully underground and just start releasing shit and forking old projects. So to your point about Sparrow and it coming for Sparrow, even though it's like a desktop wallet and it goes that far where you can't even run shit on desktop, I think that you know, if that were to come to fruition, somebody's going to go, they're going to fork the open source code and just create a new version of Sparrow that is also open source, and they'll do it as a completely anonymous developer. And does that mean that, again, a bunch of people are using licensed KYC'd Bitcoin wallets? Perhaps, almost certainly so. But does that also mean another subset of people say, fuck this, there's no way I'm uploading my ID to a Bitcoin wallet from the App Store? Yeah, it also means that, I think. And I think that it expedites that. I also think it results in, I mean, Jack Dorsey just put up another bounty for a decentralized, censorship-resistant GitHub, right? Like, I think we see that. I think we see things like, you know, you were talking about, you know, like side loading APKs onto Android phones instead of having to go to the Google Play Store. I think we'll see more of that. Unfortunately, if you've got an iPhone, you're just kind of hooped, but you probably you'll see more of the what is it, the when you just do like a browser based, I'm trying to remember.
The progressive web apps.
Yeah, progressive web apps.
I got a beef with this thesis, man. I got to tell you, because there's so much centralization now on the hosting side, on the ISP side. Like, the money laundering and KYC laws are serious. Like, that's jail time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Rogers or Bell is going to be able to pin down super easily, you know, where you're downloading your stuff from. But here in Canada, there's laws in place in second reading that are going to become legislation very soon that law enforcement is going to be able to get information about your browsing from your ISP without telling you. And then, you know, you see like the sort of the directionality of all this stuff is going one way. And so I see people in the chats going, well, something else will come, something else will come. Like, short of hosting this on something that uses no public data transfer, no public network infrastructure, no public compute at all. And then if you use private, the companies have to be willing to stand up to the authorities on something like KYC AML violations. Like, does anyone really think this is a likely outcome? You can't really tell me that that's a likely outcome, because no one in this chat, a lot of big talk in the chat, none of you, okay, have the balls, the testicular fortitude to break those laws and cost yourself and your family life behind bars, or 10 years behind bars, or 15 years behind bars. None of you, okay? I include myself in those ranks. So what is the solution? I don't know what it is, but I think part of me agrees with some of you guys saying, look, this is why it's important to get politically involved as a group, as a group of Bitcoiners, as a new group, like we've all agreed, suddenly finds ourselves with a ton of capital and a little bit of free time and some connections. Like, this is the time to use those connections and put them to the test. The incentive for governments is the same as the incentive for the people inside those governments. If they hold Bitcoin, if they understand it, if they are also experiencing economic gains from the Bitcoin, then they have to be made to realize that part of those gains comes from the ability for Bitcoin to be used non-custodially, sovereignly, pick your sort of descriptor. This is the answer. Like mesh networks.
Hold on. Does jurisdictional arbitrage come into this? Does flag theory
for how long? For how long? Like, in Europe, you can't even go on Spotify without putting your age in now. Under the, this sort of 4 horsemen of the infopocalypse. This is a theory that's been floating around for a long time.
What I'm saying, no, I'm talking about like Western. Okay, so like U.S., Canada, kind of Western Europe, and then you've got, other countries that are not fans of Western culture. Does that come into play where they are, like I've got to imagine
Dubai, UAE, all of these countries that are a bit more free. People move. Capital moves.
Yeah, that's a good point too.
Capital moves, and I think capital ultimately rules like the world too. So it was so funny. I moved recently, and I met a local Bitcoiner group, and the guy that leads the local Bitcoiner group is like, oh, I'm thinking about moving here. Like, this state's so capitally repulsive. And, that was kind of what he led with. And I said, well, what are you doing about it? And like nothing's going to change unless you're doing something about it. And if you're strong, like if you have strong capital and you've got a group of other people with strong capital, go make a difference. Go run for politics, go start a business and start to like get your way in. Like, money talks, and like nothing's going to change unless people do things about it. And like, I literally quit my job in reinsurance. I was making really good money. I left because I wanted to work in this space. I needed to spend my energy in this space. I cared. Do I know everything about it? Absolutely not. But I'm going to go like raise capital and go make a difference as much as I can. And I encourage everybody to do it. And we need to work together. Like that's just how this stuff works. And that capital will talk, and that capital will make moves in the market. So I guess my general theory here is, as more companies and individuals and different teams are pushing more capital into this marketplace, it gives people more power, and you got to use that power. Like, get into politics, talk to people, and start working in the space, because if you don't, then there's nobody else doing it.
Joey, I'll just say that, when Canada cracks down on everything and outlaws self-custody, we will welcome you with open arms in the free Republic of Alberta. You can come build a cabin in the mountains, and we'll all live happily ever after when we separate from Canada.
I understand Dave Bradley has some kind of underground bunker where you're able to smoke inside. So I'm looking forward to having a cigar with Dave. I can
neither confirm or deny those allegations. But if it were true, I'm sure you'd be more than welcome to.
Jeff is right about the capital thing, and I hope people realize that having capital and being involved in Bitcoin is the thing to do, and spreading the message is the thing to do. Like talk about it. Don't be shy about what you know and what you think is going on.
Well, and so therein lies the incentives, in that you're going to have, over the coming years, many Bitcoiners with considerable amounts of capital, specifically because they're involved in Bitcoin. And that gives them not only the power to go wherever they want, to any friendly jurisdiction that will have them and want to entice their capital go there, but it will also give them opportunities to gain more influence in their local jurisdiction. So I think both of those things will come into play. Will it be successful everywhere? No, but I do think that already, like, my wife just got her second passport. Like, we're doing that because of these types of reasons. Mm-hmm. We're already exploring things like that. I know of prominent Bitcoiners that are leaving, that like have not left yet, that are like, their plans are already in motion. They're already leaving the country with their capital. So, yeah.
And capital flows to where it's treated best. And if you have the opportunity to make a difference and you can make change that you want to see, then awesome. If not, then it's going to flow to where it wants to go. And like, for example, this has happened throughout history. This isn't a novel concept, right? Like you think about, again, the state that I'm located in, insurance companies. It's one of the most favorable states for insurance companies on the planet. What is an insurance company? Insurance company is a capital company that provides, coverage for like your population. And that design, like those people have power. And that company started really small and got bigger and bigger and bigger. And then it started to have influence, and that influence made changes in regulation to make it even more favorable for those types of companies to exist there. And that it starts small, but it's these little snowball effects all over the planet that start to make a really big impact. So start small, and then you start making a much bigger impact across everything.
Yeah.
So.
I am still incredibly, I'm actually quite hopeful for the future. It always is a pain in the ass when you see these little things like the privacy stuff and all Samurai and everything being shut down, some of these plea deals and everything. It's always really hard seeing stuff like this, but I do believe that in the long run. Yeah.
If I might add one point, working in a hospital where I interact a lot with government bureaucracy and things that are run by government, I think we overestimate how long governments are lasting. So I don't think something that's so poorly run is going to last that long, So yeah. I'm not that scared of them, how they're going to be in 20 years.
Good point. It's a good point.
So,
yeah.
I'm just leaving it out there.
Not overly capable, I guess. Yeah,
I think we're going to be able to code something that's a little bit more, smart than these failing institutions. So I'm just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I remain very optimistic. It's just, they're not going to go without a fight. It's just. And right now they still have the exorbitant privilege of being able to print money that people will still accept, but at some point
they might be going down because they need people to operate their fiat machines, and the people themselves are just, as I'm said, they're fighting themselves, they're fighting the fiat inside themselves, they're fighting the devil inside themselves. Yeah. And it looks like the devil is winning unless you adopt Bitcoin. So,
well, gentlemen, I think this is a good time to begin to round out. I will say, everybody that has been watching over the course of the show, we've got like 1,200 live viewers on YouTube right now currently, which is awesome. And it looks like across the course of the episode, we've had like between X and YouTube alone, we've had like 14,000 people come through here, which is pretty wild. So if you're watching, of course, give that like a little slap, share this wherever you are watching it. But I do want to quickly kind of go down the line. If any of you guys have like a final thought, a takeaway from any of the conversations we had, and also if you want to point people towards something that you think they should check out, then I would highly recommend you do that. So maybe I'll go to Jeff first. Any final thoughts from the evening? Anything you want to point people towards?
Yeah, final thoughts is I think Bitcoin is making just tremendous progress. We're moving forward at a great pace here. I think one general theme and takeaway I have is I think a large portion of the world is not going to wake up until Bitcoin hits like 400,000. At that point, it will be worth more than the average home in the United States, 428,000. And I think that's like the next big threshold before we see this like awakening. And I don't think we're going to see a lot of noise or concerns until we hit some point like that. Other than that, aside from that, it's hard for people to conceptualize. Mm-hmm. Prior to this, Bitcoin was worth less than a car. Like you could go still get a car, and one Bitcoin is worth less than a car. People can't wrap their heads around it. So I think the world is shifting. And so it started really store of value, And I think we're shifting a little bit more into this unit of account perspective. I think medium of exchange, which you guys are very focused on, I think is amazing. And I think we need people focused on it, but I think it's going to take a long time. And I think it's helpful to start thinking of Bitcoin as a unit of account across all things in the world, equity market, bond market, your portfolio, your net worth, and you're starting to reconceptualize your world in that way. So all things are really positive and moving forward. I'm incredibly bullish on all things at the moment, especially looking at Q3, Q4. There's a lot of things to be excited about on the horizon. So, and that's it. The other places that I am at, I host the True North podcast every Wednesday. It's happening tonight. I'm not going to be on it until the second half of the podcast. And then the Hurdle Rate podcast, which I do with Matt Cole, CEO of Strive, and Ben Workman and Tim Kotzman as well. And that's every Monday, every Tuesday.
Awesome. And just so everybody knows, all these guys' handles are in the show notes, so make sure you give them a follow and see what they're up to. But I'll toss it to Ahmad Ammous. Any final thoughts? Anything you want to point people towards?
No, I mean, some people have mentioned that they're interested in learning more about health and Bitcoin. I've done a podcast with Btcsessions. Check it out. And keep your Bitcoin, stay healthy. And
perfect. I love it. The health thing is coming in hard for Bitcoiners. I love to see it. So yeah, Joey, I'll toss it to you. Any final thoughts? Something to point people towards?
Really a pleasure chatting with you guys. Ben, thanks for having me as always. And then the theme, I'm with Jeff. I'm bullish on a lot of stuff. Life is good if you're a Bitcoiner, and if you're not a Bitcoiner, it's not too late to become one. So don't despair. Just start stacking before it's too late. You can find me every Monday, Canadian Bitcoiners podcast. We record 7 o'clock Eastern. And then every Wednesday we do an interview, not every Wednesday in the summer, but most Wednesdays. And we just had Dr. Ammous on maybe a week ago, I think. I'm pretty sure, yeah. Lots of people in the Canadian Bitcoiners Discord talking about blue light glasses now. So you've done your job, sir. And for those in the chat, I will be emceeing the Canadian conference again this year. You're returning champion. So looking forward to seeing you guys there if you're headed to Montreal. And Jeff, great. Glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Hey, great. So we'll see you guys there. And I think that's the 10th, 11th of October, something like that. Or is it a little bit later? I forget. But yeah, looking forward to it all the same. Thanks again, Ben.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And Joey, one more question for you. If you could give a rating out of 10, how would you rate today's thumbnail and title?
You're getting absolutely pasted for the thumbnail in the comments. I don't know if you see that, because first of all, I think we should all be glowing in the Bitcoin SBR vault with Saylor and Jerome Powell and whoever else is going to be there. But perfect. I'll settle for the lineup with the fire in the background. That's pretty standard template I see. So
yeah, it does its trick. I will say. Here's the trick: is that people that are coming in brand new, who would still click on a very number go up type or panicky type titles, they come in because of that. And then they come and they listen to a conversation like this.
I hope you're right. You're right.
And they do. And then the best part is they then get funneled into the tutorials. The tutorials numbers are doing so well because of it. So
I'm glad to hear that. Hey, your tutorials are important, Ben. You do a lot of good work. I want you to keep doing it. So if it means that you have to, bait at the slop trough, I'll forgive you. There's a lot of people I will not forgive, but I'll forgive you.
I'll take it. I'm fine with people ripping on me for it, because hey, it gets people on the wallets and the self custody. So let's fucking go. Anyways, gentlemen, I will say a big thank you for being here, being a part of the show. Everybody, please do give them a follow. They're down in the show notes. And until next time, make sure you pay attention to the clip at the end of the video, because very, very important. But I'll see you guys next time for your daily session. Have a good Wednesday evening.
See y'all.
Hey,
thanks.
you. Yes, you watching the Bitcoin price movements and the latest exciting news. It's awesome to stay informed, but the real power of Bitcoin comes from taking control. Don't just watch, take action. Head over to btcsessions.ca/learn for free step-by-step tutorials that guide you through every major skill you need to know, plus full video playlists for deeper dives on any topic you like.
And if you're ready for the ultimate fast track, scroll to the bottom and check out bitcoinmentor.io for premium one-on-one experience with my team of Bitcoin experts to ensure you get it right the first time. Don't wait. Secure your Bitcoin future today. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen.